and welcome to what I think is the 10th episode of the Fiber of My Being podcast, a podcast about knitting and all sorts of fibery goodness. Appearances might be made by my cats. You might be able to see them occasionally chasing each other up and down in this little gap of staircase, or they might come and investigate a little bit because I am using a slightly different setup than usual. I'm hoping this will give me better lighting. I think it already is, but we'll see how it goes. And I didn't even introduce myself yet. I'm talking about my cats and I haven't even said my name. For shame. My name is Megan, and I am a knitter and general fiber enthusiast living in Pennsylvania with my husband Paul and our 3 cats, 2 of whom are out right now. Our 2 original cats still don't really like each other, so we tend to separate them, but one of our original cats and our new kitten, Agatha, are out and about, so we might see them, we might not. And before I forget to mention it, you can find me on Ravelry and Instagram as Fiber of My Being. I recently changed my Instagram to make it easier for you to find me. Cats are crazy, and they knock lots of things over. I don't think they broke anything, though. Yeah, I think they just knocked over the TV remote. Okay, and so yeah, Fiber of My Being on Ravelry and Instagram. And also go and check out the Fiber of My Being podcast group on Ravelry to get a little bit of community time. I can't talk. It's snowing outside. Well, it's not snowing. It has snowed a lot. And yeah, so it's really cold outside, and I think it's frozen my tongue, so I can't really talk right. But yeah, go check out the podcast group on Ravelry for some community time and discussion, and I'd love to chat with you there. So, as far as my week in review has gone, I know it's been a bit longer since I last podcasted. Sorry, cats. I know it's been a bit longer since I last podcasted, mostly because I just couldn't stop knitting long enough to podcast. If given the choice between let's knit or let's podcast, this past couple of weeks, I've just chosen to knit or do other things. Yesterday, I didn't really feel like knitting at all, but I got probably more fiber stuff done than I have any other day for the past few weeks, thanks to this lovely thing, which I will talk about more later. But yeah, and one of the things that had me knitting a lot this week was that I was really trying to work on finishing a whip that I talked about in the last podcast, because I was playing Yarn Chicken, and I just wanted to know if I was going to lose or if I was going to win as soon as possible. And I think the verdict is that I lost the game of Yarn Chicken. So I put that whip on hold because I still really want to finish it, but I need to decide what approach I want to take for finishing it. So I lost at that game of Yarn Chicken. But the exciting thing this week was after I lost that game, I decided that I was going to win my whip game. I was going to just win at whips. And I think I did. I mean, I didn't finish like all the whips, but I did finish a pretty major one. which I'll talk about in just a second after I talk about what I'm wearing, because it's a little bit chilly today, so I thought I'd wear a scarf, and this is one that I knit a few years back now. It's called the Tie Ascot by Pam Powers from her Dress to Impress Knitted Scarves book. I've talked about that book a lot because I've knit most of the scarves from that book right now. But this is the Tie Ascot. It's got a nice little tapered end at the bottom with short rows, and a nice little bow that wraps all the way around my neck. And I just thought it was very appropriate for the holiday season to be wearing a bow tie. And I knit this out of Lion Brand Woolies. And like I said, a few years back is actually when I knit this. This was probably the first project I ever knit with cables, because it's got these lovely reversible cables down the side so that both sides still look nice. So I really like it, and I just thought that would be a good project to wear today. And the observant among you might notice that I'm also wearing another knit, which leads me into finished objects. That's right, I'm wearing my Wispy Willow cardigan. This was a languishing whip for a very, very long time. Until this week when I decided, you know what? I lost yarn chicken, so I'm gonna win at something. So I did. So this is a lovely, light, fingering weight cardigan with these beautiful leaf lace panels down the front and the arms and also down the back. Now I'm kind of cramped into this space right now, so I won't stand up, but I'm going to actually take the cardigan off so that I can show you in more detail. So there goes my show notes. So it's got this lovely asymmetrical panel of lace down the back as well. And just to show you, that purple stitch marker there is where I was when I started knitting this week. So, and it's a top-down sweater. So I had already knit up to that purple part, but I knit from the purple part the whole way down, which with a fingering weight sweater, that actually took quite a while. But I just started knitting like a whole lace repeat at a time per day, sometimes more than one, and I quickly finished it and did the ribbing and finished off the sleeves because I just had to go back and add the rib and the rib around the neck and the button bands. It doesn't actually button, it's just an open fronted cardigan, but yeah. So this, well, while I'm putting it back on, I'll tell you more about it. This is a pattern by Cheryl Beckerich, and it's published in the Love of Knitting magazine, their summer 2014 issue, whatever it is that it's called. So yeah, and I knit this out of, sorry, all the adjustments. I knit this out of Loops and Threads Woolike sock yarn in just this blue color. I believe the color might be called Denim, but don't quote me on that. So yeah, I just am really, really happy with how this turned out because, guys, this is my first ever sweater that I've completed for an adult size. I've knit a couple baby sweaters before for practice, but this is the first full-size sweater, and I'm actually pretty happy with the fit. I like it. It's just loose enough to be comfortable, but it's not too loose. And if I really wanted to, I could probably add some sort of fasteners because the original sweater doesn't kind of reach far enough to close but the size that I made, it does have enough ease that I can get the two ends to meet, the two sides I mean. So if I feel like it, maybe I'll go back and add some like hooks and eyes or something, because I didn't put buttonholes in, so I can't really add buttons. But I could add something else maybe. We'll see. I probably won't be wearing this very much because it's short sleeves and there's snow out there. So I won't be wearing it for a few months probably, but I'm super happy to have it done. And the reason that I got this done was because I wanted to work on my Honeycomb Aran pullover that will be showing up in my works in progress, but I was really having trouble. The cable on the needles I was using for that sweater was too small, so I decided to go to a larger cable size and discovered that the needles that I would need were currently occupied with this project. So I went, okay, I guess I need to finish this now. It was a really good motivator. So I think I've blabbered on enough about my sweater. I'm going to grab a quick drink. So I do have actually a few more FOs. A few more finished objects. Super happy. So I went to the library recently, just our public library, and I found lots of, every time I go to the library, I get a few books to read, like novels and things, and then I go to the crafts section, and I get a ton of knitting and spinning and fibery books. And we went to a different library in the system recently, and I found a book I would have never thought to find, but I found it. And it's this wonderful book, Woolbuddies. Such cute needle felting projects. I'm going to show you some of them. They're so cute. So, up till now, I've mainly been just needle felting on the fly and just making things up as I went along. But I saw this book and I had to make a few of these. So I did. And the first one that I made, you can actually see on this cover, but mine doesn't really look quite as good because needle felting is hard. I'm still getting the hang of it, but I'll show them to you anyway. All of the creatures in this book have names that are given by the author, Jackie Huang. I'm probably butchering that name, but the name is right there. And this guy used to work as an animator for Lucasfilm, and then he wanted to make creative and imaginative toys for his daughter, so he started making Woolbuddies. And I'm so glad he did, because oh my gosh, these are so cute. So the first one I made is called Stanley the Frog. So his eyes are maybe a little too far up on his head, but he's just the cutest thing. Esther, please don't knock down my camera. I was just watching the Knitting Expat podcast, her latest one that just went up today, because I'm filming this on Tuesday, the 14th, I believe. And I was just watching her podcast, and her two cats, Hugo and Derek, kept messing around with the box that her camera was perched on, and the camera kept moving everywhere. And I was like, I'm so glad my cats don't do that. But now that I have the different setup, there's a cat right off screen here, sniffing the table that I have my phone on. And I'm just really hoping that she doesn't try and climb on it, because it is a little bit of a wobbly table. So it won't necessarily hold up to her jumping on it. So if anything happens, that's what's wrong. Blame it on the cats, right? So anyway, this is Stanley the Frog on his cute little, sorry, I've got the hiccups, on his cute little lily pad. And he's got these little cute arms, more like tree frog arms than anything you'd find in Pennsylvania, but I just thought he was so cute, I had to make him. And he's got a few spots around him, and these eyes. And I learned a lot through needle felting him, because they have a lot of nice pointers in the Woolbuddies book about how to needle felt straight lines, like between color changes and things like that. So I think my needle felting is definitely improving from working through this book. But yeah, he just keeps falling over. There we go. There we go, Stanley. He's just so cute with his googly eyes. And they are differently sized on purpose. The book kind of goes for very whimsical looks. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with how he turned out. But I didn't stop there. Last night, so I mentioned yesterday that I didn't really feel like knitting at all for some reason. But I did so much other fiber stuff, and this next creature that I'm going to show you was one of the things that I did last night. And I worked for hours on this, but oh my gosh, was it worth it, because guys, I made a sheep out of wool. Her name is Eunice, according to the book, and her eyes are looking a little wonky right now, but she's made of all these little balls of wool, and she's got legs and a black little belly, and she doesn't really stand up very well on her legs because they're a little bit flimsy to hold up so much wool, but that's okay because it just kind of makes her look even more whimsical. So I just love her. I love how cute and adorable she is, and she's so fluffy, and so the Woolbuddies book is broken up by beginner, intermediate, and advanced patterns. So like a lot of the patterns on the front here, actually all of them, are like their beginner patterns, these owls and pigs and penguins and bunnies and stuff. And then they do have some more advanced patterns. So there you can see a Eunice that can actually stand up, or like Eunice is actually an intermediate pattern. And then they have some really advanced ones like this giraffe that has wires in its legs to stand up. So I'm not attempting any of the advanced patterns yet, but I just couldn't resist going for an intermediate because this sheep is just so cute. So, yeah. Let's see. No, I can't perch her. I can't keep her with me. Maybe I can put her on my shoulder. That's it. She's just gonna fall over. It's the thought that counts, right? So, oh no, Stanley, come back. So these two guys are joining my bowl of previously felted animals, my hedgehog and my fox, which almost fell down, and my owl. So there's an owl in this Woolbuddies book too, and I might actually felt her as well. Her name is Amelia, I believe, because she's just such a fun looking owl. So I would be happy with my realistic looking owl and a cartoonish looking owl. So enough blabbering about little fluffy animals, right? Really, you can never have enough of little fluffy animals. But I should move on. So this next part, I'm calling it a finished object because the real hurdles are done now, but I still, as you will see, have to weave in a lot of the ends, and I do need to do a couple more finishing things. But I recently knit Paul's other mitten for his British Driving Knucks knuckle mittens pattern by Anne Carroll Gilmour of from the Knitting Hats and Mittens from Around the World book. So these are the British Driving Knucks. And I'll show you one close up with this nice texture on the back of the hand and some lovely textured cuffs, which I think will look nicer once I block them because I haven't done that yet. But I finished up fixing the knuckle lengths on the first one, and then I went ahead and knit the second one. This might actually be the first one. I'm not really sure. I can't tell them apart, and I guess that's a good thing. But now I have two mittens, and I'll put one on so that you can kind of see it a little better. It's a bit big on my hand, but it fits Paul's hands pretty well. So I have to sew in the ends, and I have to block it, and I do need to get some like suede or some other type of patches to put on the palms because they have patches on the palms. But I'm calling these a finished object because the actual knitting is done now. I just need to do some finishing things, and that could take me a while. So I'll show them to you again when I actually finish them, but for now, they are semi-finished. So that's really exciting. And I knit these out of Simplicity by Hikoo. And again, I don't remember the composition of the fibers in this yarn. I know it's some wool, some acrylic, maybe some nylon or something. I can't remember. But I'm pretty happy with how these turned out, and so is Paul. So I'd say that's a win. And then I still have one more finished object. Where did I put it? Ah, here it is. So, if you tuned in last week, you might know that I was allowed to borrow my aunt's beautiful, beautiful spinning wheel because she doesn't really use it that much, and so she thought it'd be good for someone to get some use out of it. So when we were visiting for our family reunion, she let me bring it home with me. And you can't see it very well because of the framing and everything, but it is this beautiful Ashford traditional spinning wheel with the actual, like, the huge, pretty wheel. And so I've been getting to know it lately, and I finished my first bobbin full of yarn. I was having some issues with spinning on it at first, and I think it was more because of the wool I was spinning than because of the wheel. It was not a very well combed wool, and so I kept getting lots of chunks of fiber that just wouldn't break up, wouldn't draft out properly. So I switched to a different type of wool, and I don't know what type this is because it's just in a basket that my aunt gave me along with the spinning wheel so that I could spin up some of this fiber. But it's a pretty soft fiber, and it was pretty easy to draft. So I'm guessing it's one of the more common types of spinning fiber, but I can't really say what. But I filled up a whole bobbin full, and then I plied it. So this is just a 2-ply. Sorry, the table is moving. Don't know if you can see this very well. It's just a 2-ply yarn that I spun up using, when I ply my yarns, I tend to like to do methods that don't leave a lot of waste. Currently, I'm sure I'll get into other methods too, but for now, I don't like to waste fiber. So I usually make my 2 plies by plying from a center pole ball from both ends of the ball. So that's how I made this. And I still have to wind it off onto my niddy knotty and set the twist and everything. But I'm still calling it a finished object because the only reason I didn't wind it off last night was because I wanted to needle felt the sheep. So yeah. And I forgot to mention, I made this start to finish yesterday. Oh my gosh, spinning wheels are wonderful. Because I spun up all the singles for this and then plied it all in like an hour or so yesterday. And I'm really happy with it. And I still have all this wool left over to keep spinning. So that's my last FO. Moving on to whips. Works in progress. So I have to show you my failure, my lost game of yarn chicken, because I did still do a fair amount of work on this. This is my, yeah, I had it backwards, sorry. This is my Print O' the Wave stole by Eunice Zhang. I'm knitting it in Shirsty Cat Lovely Lace in her Springtime colorway, which is this gorgeous tonal green yarn that I would love to have this whole shawl be made out of this yarn. But I still have half of the other short end and the whole other long end to do, and I only have 15 grams of fiber left. So I think I've lost yarn chicken. Yeah. So the 2 options I've been mulling over for this gorgeous Shetland lace shawl are, one, that I could keep knitting this for the rest of the short side, and then when I get to the 3rd corner here, I could switch to a white lace yarn that I have and knit the last long side in that white lace yarn, so it'd be kind of like an accent wall for my shawl. But I don't know if it would look weird to just have one side of the shawl be white, or the other option that I have been contemplating is undoing all of this border, putting all of the edge stitches back on the needles, which would be very tedious, and then just knitting the whole border in that white lace yarn so that it's just a contrasting border altogether. So I don't know what to do because I love how this has been knitting up the border. It looks so pretty, and I just want the whole thing to look like this, but I was calculating how much yarn I would need to finish. Like I measured after this 2nd corner here to see how many grams I had left, and then divided it by how many repeats of the lace pattern I still needed. And after knitting a few more repeats, I measured again so that I could calculate exactly how much yarn I would need. And I'm like 1 gram too short on my yarn. So I don't know if it's worth it to keep knitting and possibly run out, or if I really don't know what to do. I'm really torn. And this had me really sad for a while. But then I finished this. I finished my sweater. So I think I still had a pretty victorious week. But this does make me, it makes me so happy and so sad at the same time, And I would love to hear your opinions about what you think I should do with this. Should I do the like accent edge in white yarn? Should I try to knit it all in this yarn and see if it actually comes out all right? Should I rip back and knit the whole border in white? Tell me what you think. I would love to hear some opinions because I'm really torn about what to do. Because I just want this to look so pretty because it's been so fun to knit. So I just don't know. But that's a work in progress. I will finish this one way or another because it has been one of the most enjoyable projects I've ever knit. So, yeah. But that disappointment led me to finish this cardigan, so it wasn't all in vain. Next up, where did I put that bag? These have been going a bit better. This is one of my project bags that I sewed up, and inside are 2 socks with 2 heels. They look all wonky right now, but I knit the heels on my socks. It was a little bit of a learning curve to figure out how to knit 2 at a time heels. I ended up basically just taking one of the socks off and knitting the heels, and then knitting one sock heel and then knitting the other. But that wasn't too bad because it's a lot easier to finish one heel and then move on to the other than it is to finish one whole sock and then move on to the other. So I'm now just working on the foot of the sock, and I haven't measured lately to see how much further I need to go, but I imagine it's not too much further. And then I just have to do the toe. So this is a basic sock pattern off of the yarn label for the yarn that I'm using, and it is Premier wool-free sock yarn in their Grand Canyon colorway, which I absolutely love how this is turning out. And what I thought was really cool is that even though I made no attempt to match these, both of the heels have these little spots of like this navy blue color because there are these 2 stripes that just keep matching up. They matched up down here and they matched up again up here, and I just really liked how that turned out. It adds a little bit of continuity to it. So hopefully, I was hoping to finish this whole pair of socks this week, but then I finished a sweater instead. So I guess it's not that much of a disappointment, but hopefully by next week these will be completely done. And this is also my first real pair of socks. I knit a pair of shorty socks once and they don't really fit. So this is my first official socks. So, and it's also my first 2 at a time socks. So I'm really enjoying the process. I knit them a little bit slower because I have to take frequent breaks in the 2 at a time process because it gets a little tedious pulling the magic loop through. But still, I think I'm knitting them faster than I would if I were knitting individually. So, it's working out. Next up is what I talked about earlier, my Honeycomb. I'm actually in the middle of a row, so I can't show this very well. This is my Honeycomb Aran pullover. I finished almost the first whole repeat, and that's when I realized that my cable was really too short to be comfortable to work on this with. So now that I'm finished with this sweater, hopefully this one will get more love. And this is a pattern by Patons, the Honeycomb Aran pullover pattern. And I'm knitting it out of Knit Picks Wool of the Andes in their Brass Heather colorway, which is just so gorgeous and autumnal, and I can't wait for this to be a finished sweater. But yeah, I'm gonna switch over to the bigger cables soon. And also I need to reevaluate if I need to be knitting a different size or not. So I thought it was just a good idea to put this on hold. But I did do a little bit of knitting on this week. Hiccups. Oh my gosh, sorry. Next up in works in progress is my Rhodicol scarf. Rhodicol? Rhodicol? I forgot how to pronounce it. It's Dutch. It's Dutch for red cabbage. And yes, it looks like red cabbage. And this is a pattern by Nancy Marchant, the queen of brioche. So of course, it's brioche knitting. And let me just move it to the middle of the needle so I don't have any accidents with it. But I have been knitting on this. Last week I think I was probably somewhere around here, so I've knit a decent amount in these past couple weeks. So it's reversible, of course. And so I'm just chugging away at this, trying to get the length needed for the middle of the scarf. That's seeming to be the most tedious part, and then once I get to this other keyhole, I think it'll be a lot easier to just breeze through the end. It's just kind of a psychological thing, feeling like I'm not getting any closer to the length that I need before I can make the other keyhole. And I'm knitting this out of Loops and Threads Woolike in this like burgundy red color, and then their like off-white color. And I'm really happy with how it's turning out. This is the first sort of actual brioche patterning I'm knitting, and I just really, really love it. It's really fun. And it's living in my Dia de los Muertos sugar skull bag, which I absolutely love. There's a cat pulling at the blanket behind me. By the way, I have also made this blanket. This is a woven crochet blanket from the Ostentatious Crochet book, a book of crochet inspired by Jane Austen. So it's a carriage blanket, and it's this lovely plaid color. And Agatha, our kitten, was just pulling at it. So sorry, she was hanging from the blanket. Crazy cat. So, yeah, that was my Rhodicol. I'm going to move a couple things around so that I can show you. This was one of the big victories that I had this week. I got so much work done on this blanket. I've been catching up. This is my temperature blanket that I'm talking about. I've been catching up so much, and my husband, Paul, also stepped in and helped a ton. So, cats. So, I'll show you. I can't show you this whole blanket because, frankly, it's massive. But I will go down the long edge of it. So this is January, where I started. And it goes through several months. This is like July, when it started getting hot. And August, September, October, November, and then December started here with this black line. So when I last podcasted, I was still stuck somewhere in the middle of November, somewhere in here. So I caught up through the rest of November and December, and I'm now completely caught up. So I'm back to doing just a row a day, which is wonderful because it's so much easier. I don't know why I haven't done that all year. It would have been so much nicer, but I think I can sustain it for the last few weeks of the year because it is cold now, and so I'm okay with having a blanket in my lap. But I'm caught up. I'm ready to do tonight's row as soon as I can know what the temperature is for it. And also, if you noticed, there aren't any dangly ends here. Paul was really wonderful. While I was crocheting several rows of this one night, and we were watching, just finally started watching The Crown on Netflix, and oh my gosh, I want to watch it every night now. I want to never have the show end because I'm just loving it so much. But we were watching The Crown, and I was feverishly crocheting, trying to catch up. And Paul went, because I taught Paul how to crochet as well. He's done a few rows of this blanket, but generally I do the crocheting because it's a lot quicker for me to do it. But I also taught him how to weave in ends. And so he said, okay, well, the blanket's really long. What if while you're crocheting on one end, I'm sewing in ends on the other? And I was like, oh my gosh, that's brilliant. Thank you. And so he crocheted in several ends. And then when I finally caught up, the fact that he started crocheting in ends made me so much more willing to sew in the ends. So I've been doing like a whole month a day, just going through and sewing in the ends. So now all I have to do is sew in October and November and work on December. I don't like to sew in ends too close to where I am because sometimes I realize that I've made a mistake and need to rip back a few rows. So I think I'll only sew in through November for right now, but if all I have to sew in at the end of this is December, then that's not bad at all. So I'm so happy that I'm catching up on this, that I'm caught up on this, and that the ends are almost done. It's making it such an enjoyable experience because I think I was just overwhelmed by all the stringy bits and how many rows I had to crochet, and now I'm really enjoying it. So it's nearly done. I'm going to stop at the end of December, and then I just need to do like a black border around it, which might take me a little bit, but I have time. So really happy with that. Just a couple more works in progress. This next one is living in just a canvas bag, and it's from the same book as this scarf, my bow tie Ascot. So this is the Dress to Impress Knitted Scarves book by Pam Powers, and I got a little bit of knitting done this week on my Fraulein scarf. So it's knit from the middle, so I've got a provisional cast on here, and then I'm going to pick up and knit the rest of the scarf in the other direction. But I feel like when I picked this up this week I was maybe around here. So I did knit a fair amount of the lace repeat one day because I was just looking for a really, really easy knit, and this is a 2-row repeat. So it was pretty enjoyable. This has to be really, really long though, because it's a super long scarf and you can tie it in a bow and it's still really long. So I think that's mostly what's been daunting about this. But I did do a little bit of it. And I'm knitting this out of Loops and Threads Woolike, which is this lovely boucle type yarn in this gold color. And then I'm knitting the tie in just red heart. Just an off-white red heart. So, not to prolong that too long, but I have done a little bit of work on that. And then, one more work in progress that also was done entirely yesterday. So, I told you I didn't feel like knitting. I've said that multiple times now. So first, I played around on the spinning wheel and spun up that whole bobbin of 2-ply yarn. And then I did this next work in progress. And then I needle felted Eunice the Sheep. And then I finished catching up on the crochet blanket because I still had maybe a week's worth of rows to do. So I got a lot done yesterday because the work in progress that I haven't shown you yet is drop spindling. Because after I finished my yarn on the wheel, I decided I didn't want to neglect my spindle. And this is my merino tencel fiber that I've been spinning up in this lovely like caramel apple type color. It's not a named colorway or anything, but that's just what I'm calling it because it's got these lovely caramel tones and then like this sour apple green. And so I decided I wanted to spin the rest of this fiber on my spindle because the first skein was spun on my spindle, so for consistency I want to spin the rest on the spindle. And I cable plied this yarn, so it's a 4-ply, and so I'm spinning up the singles right now, and I spun so much of this in so little time. I just didn't want to stop spinning. So I still have another nest of fiber here, and then another little chunk of braid. So hopefully I can spin all this on the spindle before it gets overloaded, but we'll see. So working on that. That's pretty exciting. So that's the last of my works in progress for this week, I believe. Yes, it's the last. So last up, I do have a few acquisitions. Not yarny, but still nice. So I've been acquiring more and more fabrics to make project bags, and I'm hoping to get into a little bit of garment sewing soon. But I got a couple of fat quarters. They're both the same, so I'll just show you one of them. These lovely little green foxes and gray squirrels and blue owls and little birdies. And these whimsical like lollipop trees. So I was just really drawn to this fabric, so I got a couple of fat quarters of this. This is just from Walmart. And I got a couple of them because I want to try to make some slightly bigger bags that'll hold slightly larger projects. So I have a lot of sock-sized bags, and and then I have one very large, like sweater-sized bag. So I was just looking to sew one kind of in the middle, just a little bit bigger. So I got 2 of these fat quarters, and I'm figuring they can pair nicely with this like mossy green print for the lining. So hopefully I will sew those up soon. I just haven't felt like working with the sewing machine in the past few days. And then my other acquisition, reaching around the spinning wheel. If you follow me on Instagram, you might have seen this, but I picked up just from Michael's some little rolls of roving for needle felting, just so I can expand my color palette. So I got these after I found that Woolbuddies book, so that I could just have fun experimenting with color. And I really haven't broken into them yet. I've been using colors from my stash, but I did use a little bit of brown for the frog, for the shadow under the eyes. So I did break into it just a little bit. But I got these cute little rolls of fiber, and I'm dropping them. So anyway, those are my acquisitions. And I'll quickly, before my camera cuts me off again, I will quickly talk about goals for this week. So I'm hoping, my husband's really badgering me to knit his balaclava because it's getting cold. So I'm hoping to cast that on with this Cascade 220 superwash. And I want to keep working on spinning with the spinning wheel because I want to get confident enough with it that I can start spinning up this beautiful, beautiful braid of fiber. Actually, I have 2 of these. And I really want to start spinning them up so that I can use them because they're beautiful. And then hopefully I can sew a project bag this week, maybe. And just keep hacking away at my whips. Hopefully I'll have socks next week, and hopefully I will be able to refrain from wearing them until I podcast. And yeah, I'm hoping that I can not cast on too much stuff, because I do have a lot to finish. And so that's about my week. So please go check me out on Ravelry and Instagram, and check out the Ravelry group. And if you have any advice about what I should do with my game of yarn chicken on that shawl, please let me know. I would love to hear your advice or your ideas about what I can do with that. And yeah, I just want to thank everybody for watching. And I've been watching a lot of new podcasts this week. I discovered the Little Tailoress podcast, and I watched a bit of her first one yesterday while I was spinning. And I've been still faithfully watching the Skein Knits podcast. I absolutely love her podcast and all of the traditional knitting styles and all of the woolly wool yarns. So I'm just really enjoying her podcast. And I have just been keeping up with some other ones, like Knitting Expat, Insight number 23. I can't think of any others right now, but I know there are some. I just can't think of what I've been watching. Oops. So I think I will stop blabbering before my phone decides that I need to be done blabbering. So thanks for watching, and until next week, happy knitting!